You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge.
What's up, ladies? How y'all doing? It is your girl, your diva in knowledge, Lady Mocha, representing Mocha's Ladies Lounge. Hope everybody is doing well. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. If you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. Those of you who are already members, I thank you for tithing into the congregation faithfully. Your $2.99 once a month. And for all of you who are just subscribed to the channel, I thank you so much for viewing and liking the video and sharing. So I appreciate each and every one of y'all. So I want to get right into it right away, into my Unhinged episode series. Usually I've always done it exclusively, but I want to until I get my membership to a certain level, I'm going to make them all accessible until the time being. But nevertheless, I want to thank everybody for still being supportive. Appreciate it. So I wanted to do this one in particularly because I was just doing I just did my last Unhinged not too long ago. And it was about it was actually it wasn't Unhinged. It was just one of my usual content. The bottom breed beta male becomes a liability when he has nothing. And for those of you who didn't view it, make sure you check that out. I uploaded it 2 days ago. It is still under my archives, and I labeled it when the bottom breed beta male becomes a liability when he has nothing. I'm talking about women who are in relationship with guys who unfortunately don't have a lot going for themselves, who unfortunately have become codependent on their woman's success, on their woman's independency. And keep in mind, as much as we have a lot of women who love to go around and brag about their independence and how they can take care of themselves, men used to be threatened by that, and they still are, but they're not threatened to the point to where they don't mind being with you and using you as long as they're able to benefit off of your independence. The only thing they don't like is when they cannot benefit off of your independence, which makes them perceive you as being stuck up. You're a bitch. You think you're better than them. So as long as they can use you, they're fine with that. But the moment you don't want them no longer having access to part of your success, or part of your income, or your celebrity stardom, whatever it is, they want to be able to benefit from that. And once they can't benefit from it, or you become too big, too successful, too well known, it becomes a threat to their masculinity. And this is where the abuse, this is where the name calling, this is where they physically want to put their paws on you. They're verbally cursing you out, calling you all type of degrading names, because it's basically to keep you at bay. They don't want you to get too big to the point to where you start, they feel like you start belittling them, you act like you don't need them, you start putting them down. So you have a lot of these bottom bred beta males who constantly like to keep their foot on your neck, you know what I mean? And it's to make sure you don't get too out of hand. It's to make sure that they keep you in one space. They don't want you getting too ahead of them. That's what I'm basically trying to say. So that's where the beta male, really starts, really getting the best of himself by being overly dominant, overly controlling, over possessive. And yes, if they got to use their kids to do that, they will do that. And that's why as women, you got to be careful when you have children from these men. So, I talked about the Keke Palmer, I talked about Martell, and I talked about the young lady, Diasia Stevenson, who was unalived by her husband. She was an entrepreneur, and she gave him the best of everything, and no matter what she did for him, it was not enough. She included him in on her success. She bought him everything. She gave him money. And yet it was not enough to make him feel masculine to the point to where he felt the need to unalive her. So all of that is the reason why I decided to do this unhinged episode. And actually, one of the subscribers or one of the viewers said, "Oh, you need to cover the story with Russell O'Neal and his brother, because this is so similar." And actually I had already thought about it. Coincidentally, me and my subscribers, a lot of y'all be on the same, we be on the same page on so many stuff. So I was going to talk about it, and before I could talk about it and do it unhinged, somebody already recommended it and wanted me to do an unhinged episode. So nevertheless, that is what I am doing. I want to talk about former High Five boy band member Russell O'Neal, and also his brother Ronald O'Neal. And when I say the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, both of these men are brothers, and both of them have unalived their wives, and we're going to go further into that as I begin my commentary. But that is what this unhinged episode is about. So I'm a late 70s baby, okay? I was born 79. Like I told y'all, I just had a birthday November 7th. I made it to 44. Woo woo. Praise the Lord. Thank you, Jesus. But I've always been very big and heavy on music. And music has always been like my best friend. It's always been what I turn to, depending on what I'm going through, depending on what obstacles I'm up against. And to this day, I love music. I am an old school junkie. A lot of my friends, when they can't figure out a certain artist, they can't figure out a certain song, they call me, because there's not too many singers or artists that I do not know. I am a music junkie. Okay, I'm totally obsessed with music. Anything from the 70s to the 80s, from hip hop to R&B. That is my area of expertise. There's not too many old school artists that I don't know of, but the early 90s, I would say that was probably during my middle school, transitioning into high school days. Boy bands used to be the biggest thing back in the day. The boy bands, what I mean by the boy bands, they don't really exist anymore. We had the Boys to Men, we had the Jodeci, we had the Drew Hill, 112, Belle Biv DeVoe, New Edition, Silk, Next, Jagged Edge, Mint Condition, Shy. Must I go on? All of my ladies from back in the day, we always had that one boy band, okay? And it was always that one guy in that boy band that just was the biggest heart throb eye catcher. And High Five was one of the biggest yet hottest, most talented boy band. There's no one that does not know who High Five is. And if you don't know, listen, you need to check their resume, because High Five was it, baby, okay? The biggest thing about High Five, where they're known from, is their platinum selling song, The Kissing Game. The Kissing Game, the radios wore it out. We didn't have no Spotify. There was no Amazon Music download. You had to actually go to the record store. I miss those days when we actually had to go into the record store. You actually had to buy that CD. You had to buy that single. Listen, check out Kissing Game Remix. The remix is hot to this day, okay? The music is still a banger. If it comes on in the club, it comes on the radio. I like the way you kiss me when we're playing the kissing game. I cannot sing, but listen, when I be in my car, that radio blasted, I can harmonize with the whole High Five group as long as the song is louder than me and I'm singing along with it. I be killing it. But when I'm singing it by myself, oh, I kills it all right. I literally kill the damn song, all right? So, anyway, all of us had loved us some High Five, okay? The group members consisted of, you know, the lead singer, Tony Thompson. You had, make sure I get all these guys' names right so I don't butcher any of them. But we know Tony Thompson was the group leader. Tristan Irby, who I am currently Facebook friends with on Facebook. He still looks good to this day. Marcus Sanders. Let me see, Shannon Gill. And then there was one who was also part when they first came out, when they did their first single, Just Can't Handle It. Oh, the other guy's name was, why is his name is not in there? Okay, Toriano Easley. Yeah, that was he was one of the main members. Okay, so to break it down, for those of you who probably don't remember, the original High Five consisted of Tony Thompson, the leader, Toriano Easley, Russell O'Neal, Roderick Clark, known as Pooh, and it was another one named well, those was the main four: Tony, Russell, Roderick, Toronto. Okay, and they had one or two other members, but you never knew about them because they came and went before the group really got into their first single. But those were the main four that everybody pretty much knew of. The group had a lot of changes, of course, because things were happening. But the very first single that was ever put out basically consisted of 5 of them. Whatever. So getting into it, the group had experienced a lot of tragedies along the way. One of the biggest problems was as big of a boy band selling group, they really was not making the money that they deserved. Not only that, because they were young, they were restricted from a lot of things, being that their road manager was very strict, very stern. He didn't allow them to go to the clubs. He didn't allow them to drink. He kept a tight handle on them. So imagine having all of these thousands of dollars and all of these women who desiring you and want to be with you. You can't just sneak off and do all kind of things like you want to, because your road manager is like a parent, right? They're supervising y'all, making sure y'all all stay in a hotel room together. So the guys, these young men, you know, back then a lot of people was not near as educated when it came to money and tours and paying management. You know, back then people was so, pretty much like now, people are so infatuated with being famous that they're willing to sign anything. They're willing to, you know, being a starving artist, you're willing to take the bones, you're willing to eat anything just to get through the door. And that is basically what had happened. You know, they didn't read those contracts. Their parents wasn't too aware of what to make them be cautious of before they sign them contracts. Kind of same thing New Edition went through. A lot of your parents don't always really be up on game unless you was like Beyonce Knowles' father, Matthew Knowles, who really knew about that business, or Joe Jackson, Michael Jackson's father. Other than that, average parent don't know too much about business. They just so happy that their child getting signed and getting fame And you thinking because they're going on concerts and going on all these tours, and you see they face on the album covers that they're making all of this money, and they really was not. Now the band was formed in 1989 and consisted of founding members Tony Thompson, Roderick Pooh Clark, Marcus Sanders, Russell Neal, and Oklahoma native Toronto Easley. So yes, it was 5 of them. All right, so along with that, y'all, along with the fame and the touring, and you got to remember all of these guys were very young. A lot of them they wasn't even 18 years old yet, but they had the voices of grown men, which is what gravitated a lot of young women towards High Five, because they had such a marvelous harmony, and on top of that, they were really, really handsome. You know, all of these guys were just so like pleasant to look at, and then they could sing. You know, so yeah, you know, the High Five was our heartthrob, okay? But there was a lot of drama that went on behind closed doors. You know, as these young men started getting older, they started rebelling a little bit, wanting to do their own thing. Eventually they did switch managers. They ended up getting another manager that wasn't near as strict and didn't ride down on them, and gave them more leniency. And you knew it was eventually going to come to that. These young men was making money. They had all of these women wanting them and throwing their panties at them and stuff. So these young men wasn't going to be just cooped up in no hotel room while managers sitting there and breathing down their neck. And you know, the manager, he understood that. He knew they was going to rebel, so there was no hard feelings for him when they decided to fire him and take on another manager that was going to be a lot more lenient and kind of let them have their way a little bit. All parents, all children, teenagers do rebel at some point. We've done it with our own parents. So with every blessing comes a curse. These guys really, really started like going through it. The first harsh reality check was when they first group member, one of the guys from the original Toronto Easley, got caught up in a criminal charge that resulted in him getting in a situation in which he actually ended up incarcerated. Toronto, unfortunately, was charged with murder in 1990. He ended up being replaced by Tristan Irby, which I'll go into that later. But Easley, unfortunately, with his fame, he still had issues letting go of the streets. And unfortunately, before the group could get really big and get really successful, he ended up getting caught up in the streets, and it costed him to have to leave the group, and they had to replace him, you know. And that it was a very harsh reality check for him, because during his incarceration, he was locked up and seeing the guys continue to grow, seeing High Five continue to grow, keep selling hits, and make it so bad. His voice was still on the very first album, but here it is, he see this new group member who's taking his place while he's locked up and he's incarcerated. So as the saying goes, the show must go on, you know, and that's basically what ended up happening. They had to move on without him, you know. And that's when he ended up being replaced before their second album came out. And that's when Marcus Sanders, Russell Neal, and Roderick Pooh Clark, whom was also from Waco, Texas, in case y'all didn't know, majority of the guys in the group was from Waco, Texas, except for Tristan, who was the replacement of Toronto. He's the only one that's from the Bronx, from New York. But nevertheless, on their second album, that's when they really started getting this recognition. Like I said, I like the way the kissing game. I can't wait another minute. She's playing hard to get, and all of that. So these guys were blowing up. You know, they was becoming successful, and they really did the darn thing. But tragedy after tragedy after tragedy, like I said, the first situation with Toronto being incarcerated, and he was one of the guys that first originally started out with them. So he never got a chance to really experience that success like he could have. After that, that was when Pooh, unfortunately, I guess they were going on a tour or coming from a tour or traveling somewhere, and that is when they got into a fatal car accident. And nobody, well, not fatal because nobody died, but critical accident because Pooh, Roderick, was the one who was actually driving, and unfortunately the accident resulted in him being paralyzed from the waist on down. At this time when he was paralyzed, keep in mind the group already had tension with Russell O'Neal because Russell O'Neal was not getting the shine he really wanted. They kept giving all the leads to Tony Thompson because he was the one who just had that it voice. So Russell O'Neal had kind of backed out for a while Pooh and Tristan and Tony and the rest of the guys, as they were pushing the group and keeping it going, Russell O'Neal, got in his feelings and he stopped going on tour, with them. He just stopped coming to the shows, stopped coming to the studio sessions because he wanted to get some lead. And you know how these record labels do. They make the decisions, and it doesn't matter what you think you're entitled to. If they say, I want this person to always sing leads, and that's why a lot of groups don't become as successful because they keep allowing just one person to do all the leads, and it starts making the other members feel insignificant. So, but after that accident, Pooh knew he was not going to be able to return back to the group. He was paralyzed from the waist on down, and the sad part about it was Pooh was actually one of the most dedicated ones. And unlike the other two, Toronto, who decided to still indulge in the streets, and here there's Russell O'Neal who kept quitting on them, and coming back and quitting. Pooh was one of the ones that was dedicated. He never left the group, never got in any trouble, never did anything to jeopardize ever being a part of the group. And unfortunately, just life happened, and he couldn't continue with them anymore. And I can tell this definitely shifted the dynamics in the group. So against his better judgment, Pooh convinced Russell O'Neal to put whatever personal issues he had aside and to please come back to the group. So because of that, and everybody was, in such an emotional place of having to accept the fact that Pooh was going to be paralyzed from the waist on down, wheelchair bound for the rest of his life. They was going to have to once again replace another member, especially with their second album doing so well. It really devastated them. But they knew they could not allow to let High Five die, so they had to keep the show going. And it was Pooh who convinced Russell O'Neal to come back. Now, for those of you who pretty much familiar with the group, you'll know Russell O'Neal left. If you watch the video, she's playing hard to get. You'll see all the other guys in that video, but you won't see Russell. Instead, you'll see another guy that they put in the video as a dancer, and that was to throw the fans off so nobody would really know that Russell was not there. Hell, I didn't even know till years later. But if you was a Russell O'Neal fan, you probably sensed something was wrong. Like, okay, Russell's not there. But yes. So in that video, you'll see all the members except him because Russell was in his feelings again because he couldn't sing lead. Pooh was in the video. But after Pooh, again, convinced Russell to come back, and Russell like, okay, man, I'm going to do this for you. Only because I know you can't be a part of the group, I'm going to go back. So if you watch the video, Quality Time, which is one of my favorite songs, that was my ringtone for the longest, okay? Quality Time, R. Kelly wrote that. Nevertheless, you will see Pooh is not in that video, but you will see Russell O'Neal is back in the video. And that was when the dynamics of the group had really shifted, y'all. So after that tragedy, it just, it was, 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 continued to be one problem after another. The group steadily kept bumping heads, and when they started getting some revenue for the tours and the album sales, which still wasn't what they really deserved, but Russell O'Neal noticed that he was given the lesser percentage. And when he confronted them, like, okay, I came back on the strength of Pooh, y'all still cutting me short. You already not giving me lead, so why y'all messing with my money? Like, they had to tell him, listen, bro, you didn't show up to the video shoot. You didn't show up to do studio sessions, so we took your other percentage and we split it amongst the group. Righteously so, he was not there to do his part. But Russell O'Neal was one of those guys, like, he was just gonna always rebel. Either you gonna do it the way he wants you to do it, or he gonna turn up, and that's what ended up happening. So Russell O'Neal once again quit the group and said, I'm done for good. I'm like, the audacity, sir. You left the group, all right? So why are you in your feelings that they had to cut your check? Everybody had to sing your parts, do your dances, because you wasn't on stage. But anyway, that's beside the point. So, after this, it was one thing after another. The groups kept changing. Eventually, it was just one thing after another. And what ended up happening was the group ended up splitting. They took a break. Sales wasn't popping. Album sales wasn't popping. Tour wasn't popping. Every artist has gone through their droughts where just your hits ain't banging like that. They tried to keep it going, but it just wasn't the same momentum. So Tony, against his better judgment, wanting to keep the group alive, decided to form his own High Five. Why did he do that? All hell broke loose because the original High Five members saw Tony trying to do the new High Five, and all their name is on that, so they went to court, shut that down. Tony was upset because remember, Tony did, before he started his next High Five, he did go solo. That was the other part I forgot. Tony Thompson did go solo for a little while. He had one or two little singles, but y'all know how it go. These groups rarely do well once they start branching off doing singles. You have a few, like Justin Timberlake from NSYNC. His career kept getting bigger and bigger once he left NSYNC. Beyonce career got bigger and bigger once she left Destiny's Child. So solo does benefit certain artists. In some cases it doesn't. It did not benefit Tony Thompson. Okay, he did good, but nobody was feeling it. Like, people only loved him really with High Five. Okay, the boy could sing, but they want to see him sing with who he started off with, which was High Five. So that was the first demise when they made him go solo, and it made the guys feel some type of way. But these record companies, they do that. That's why your friendship has to be solid, y'all. You know what I mean? Because these record labels, y'all may have one intention of, we gonna stick together no matter what. No, they got to take us all the same. They got to treat us all with equal respect, or else we leaving. And all that is well and done until these record label, these company come to you and say, hey, if you go solo, you'll get this amount of money, you'll get that amount of money. And especially if you noticing with your group, y'all ain't making the money y'all used to make, temptation will set in. Like, I am the voice of the group. Temptation and egos set in. Look at David Ruffin from the Temptations. I ain't making no money with y'all. I make more money, you know what I mean? But nevertheless, sometimes you go solo, it backfires. And Tony Thompson did not get anywhere going solo. So that's when he tried to start to rebrand a whole new High Five. And like I said, Tristan and all of them shut that down. And y'all, I can attest to this. If you watch all of the documentaries, he made that very clear. So anywho, after they shut down that second operation, and he caught himself trying to redo the group because, again, Him and the guys were not seeing eye to eye, and he wanted to keep the high five legacy going. So you know how it is. I mean, I don't think nobody was really being grimy. I just think it was a lot of immaturity. I think the record labels got into their heads, you know, and I'm sure as they had matured, they would have done things differently, and that's what was getting ready to happen. The group did reach out to Tony Thompson and said that they want to get back together, but with the original high five, and Tony Thompson was down with it. He was so glad to get back in good standing with his boys, you know, because they started this together. This was something they've always done together. So nevertheless, they got back together. They was going to start doing tours, and unfortunately, before they can make that dream come alive again, the group was struck again with another loss, and a major loss. And not to say that nobody else in the group was important, but they lost their leader. They lost that special gem to the group that really made high five. And this doesn't make the other members less insignificant, but let's just keep it a buck. Tony Thompson was the voice, and unfortunately, he had a drug addiction that he had a very difficult time battling. And we know drugs are a demon. Once you start, building an addiction with drugs, they take over your life to the point to where it ends up taking your life indefinitely, and that is what happened. Tony Thompson, unfortunately, was in a stage in his life in which he was really feeling down on himself. He could not see in him what everybody else saw, what his fans saw, what his fiance saw. He could not see that gift that a lot of people so dearly loved him and supported him for. He couldn't see the gift and the beauty in his voice. And drugs just ended up winning the battle. And it was unfortunate that June 1st, 2007, his body was discovered by security officers around 10 p.m. near an air conditioning unit outside an apartment complex. The autopsy later revealed that he had died from toxic effects from inhaling a toxic amount of Freon. So, a lot of y'all may not be familiar with Huff or Freon. It's more common than what a lot of people think. And unfortunately, the Freon is nothing to play with. That's a very strong, potent chemical that the human body is not designed to ingest by nature, which is the reason why he ended up losing his life. You just don't inhale those type of toxins. Freon is specifically for AC units, not for the consumption of the human body. June 12, 2010, a special ceremony was held for Tony Thompson's grave. Now, he does leave behind a handsome son. He does have grandchildren. So, it was a lot of tragedy in this group. Tristan Irby, I also forgot to mention him. He did get shot at a couple of times, but by the grace of God, he survived it. So all of these guys had some form of tragedy or another. And Pooh held on for a long time, but he ended up eventually dying. He passed away. Make sure I get his year of when he passed away, because I was also on Facebook friends with Pooh Clark, and even though he had permanently been bound to a wheelchair, he was still in good spirits. He still had a son, a child. He still was supported and surrounded by love. And even though he no longer was that Pooh that we got used to seeing, he still was in really good spirits, even being in permanently paralyzed. He was still doing really well. He passed when it was January, March, April 19th, 2022. He died at the age of 49. And like I said, even after a car crash that occurred 30 years ago in Florida that left him paralyzed from the neck down, making him unable to walk, he had to develop an infection that spread through his body, that unfortunately had persisted over time. So he also died from pneumonia, that affected him for over 2 weeks, being in and out of the hospital until he finally passed. So it was very, very sad. But he did say he would always cherish the group. So these guys went through it, honey. They just really, really went through it. But let's get into Russell O'Neal, all right? Because I know that was the main thing, y'all, we're supposed to be talking about. But I had to share that history because y'all need to understand how much this group had really, really gone through. Tragedy after tragedy. So Russell O'Neal appeared to be trying to live as normal as possible. I mean, fame, the loss of fame can really make a person spiral into a significant space of depression. When you just no longer have that fame that you're known for, they have to go back to regular life and pay bills, pay rent, be willing to swallow your pride and work at Dollar General or become a UPS truck driver. A lot of celebrities, former artists have a hard time adapting to the afterlife of being non-famous. People remember you, but you no longer getting that attention and recognition that you're used to having. Russell O'Neal had really struggled with that. He had been known for, being a part of this platinum selling group, High Five. They had all kind of soundtracks on very popular movies like Sister Act. The group just really kept going downhill, and Russell, like I said to y'all earlier, he ended up leaving the group due to contract issues. Russell felt like he should have been paid more money, and it was just one thing after another. And Tony Thompson passed, that just killed whatever little bit of spark the group had. So Russell had to go back out there into the real world like any other man. Got to get a job, got to support yourself, you got to find your norm even after the fame is gone. So as a result of that, Russell met beautiful woman by the name of Catherine. Catherine was 18 when they met, and Russell was in his 30s now. He claimed he was a music producer, but he didn't really have a job. Russell seemed to be more concerned about his image than he did anything else. So, Russell was still holding on to that fame that he no longer had. So he still tried to make it seem like to Catherine that he still had some part in the music world, which he did not have. And he didn't want to let go of that. He didn't want to let go of it. He was still convincing himself he was that dude. And dude, you're not that dude. But Catherine Martinez, beautiful girl. I'm sure at one point in time, and even her family has attested to this, she was still smitten by Russell O'Neal's former fame. The fact that a former boy band member from a popular, huge group at that was interested in her. She was smitten by that. Even though he was no longer that dude, Catherine didn't look at it that way. She was like, wow, Russell from the high five is checking for me? Wow. So Catherine's family, you know, especially her sister Glenda, knew Russell. Something was off with Russell. You know, she just knew something wasn't quite right with him. But Catherine was so in love, and mind you, she was 18 and he was in his 30s. She didn't see any harm in him, you know, and she was just so ecstatic that this guy from High Five is checking for me. Out of all the women he could have been with, he's checking for me. So the family started peeping a lot of things that wasn't right on the home front, right? So early in their relationship, Catherine got into a car accident in Russell's Lincoln. Okay, the car had flipped several times and crashed into a tree. He was more concerned about his car than Catherine. Catherine was airlifted to the hospital, and Russell was really angry about her damaging the car. Catherine felt as if she needed to pay him back, and started doing that by basically paying for everything. After 5 months of dating, Catherine and Russell moved in together. She got pregnant with their oldest son. They went on to have 2 sons. Catherine left school to become a full-time parent. Russell's brother, Ronald, had been arrested for assaulting his wife. Now, keep in mind, Russell's brother was nowhere a member of the group High Five, but he was Russell's brother. And apparently, he had issues. So, on the day that Ronald's wife left him and filed for divorce, he shot her 5 times in front of their child. He was sentenced to 80 years in prison. So, Glenda told, you know, Catherine, who was with Russell at the time, about her concerns, and told her, look, sis, I'm concerned because Russell's already showing all of these red flags that he's narcissistic. He has narcissism. He's still holding on to that image of being part of that boy band that left him years ago. Then on top of that, his brother unalived his wife. Sis, I'm concerned. I'm worried. But against Catherine's better judgment, she stayed. And like a lot of women, she wanted that dream of her sons to be raised by the both of them. She did not want to break up that happy home. She was, I would say, Catherine and Russell, in a sense, they both was more concerned with their image than really having a healthy marriage, a healthy relationship with each other. The crazy part, right? You know, I feel like in this particular situation, Catherine had loved Russell for who he was, okay? Which was a former boy band member of High Five. She still loved him just off, she was infatuated with him off of that strength alone. And the crazy part was, Russell was feeling less of a man, feeling less worthy because he no longer saw himself as being that guy. But the crazy part was, his wife did. So you would have thought his wife stroking his ego, you know, seeming to be proud to be with him based off the fact that he was part of such a large group. You would have thought that would have been enough to kind of stroke his ego, but that still was not enough. Russell was still miserable from being a has-been, okay? Let's just keep it a buck. Catherine's family suspected that Russell was abusive, and he was, you know. Catherine was wear makeup to cover her bruises, you know, because she's very light-skinned and light complexion woman. And, you know, bruises show up very easily on women that are fair complexioned, you know. So she couldn't hide it. And you know, women, when we around you a lot, especially when we're related to you or you're our daughter, we can just tell your whole momentum. You can't hide abuse. I don't care how hard a woman tries to hide it. She'll smile. She'll cover makeup. You just know. You just know it's that women's intuition and our mother's intuition that this woman is being abused. So Catherine and Russell had been together for about 5 years, and they had separated multiple times in between. They did decide to split in 2013. So around that time, she focused on her career and just being a mom. She continued to model. She was bodybuilding, and she actually was really heavy into fitness. And she was also training to be a boxer. So she just decided, let me put all of my energy into bettering myself, bettering my career, being a mother to my boys. So she had full custody of the kids, and Russell would be allowed, to come over to see them and watch them while Catherine went to the gym. So they lived in a condo on the west side of Houston. June 30th, 2014, Catherine went to 𝐜𝐚'𝐬, Texas to promote something for work. This was the last time her sister Glenda would see her. On June 2nd, 2014, Russell Neal walked into the Houston police station. He said he had gotten into a fight the previous night with his wife, and she was now deceased. If this ain't eerie, I don't know what is. For you to just walk into the police station and tell the police, me and my wife got in a fight, and she's no longer with us. She's gone. I unalived her. Several officers were sent to the condo to see if Russell was telling the truth, and he was. Her body was found. He had covered her with a sheet. She had multiple blunt force injuries to her head and numerous stab wounds to her neck and shoulder. Catherine had several defensive wounds to her firearms. The scene was gory and bloody, y'all. Catherine had been unalived with a tire jack that had been duct taped on both sides and a knife. Both of the weapons were found in the condo. Seemed like Russell had planned the attack to where Catherine wouldn't have had a chance to get away. Their children were in the house at the time during this incident, so I could only imagine the emotional and mental toll this took on them. The evidence suggested that Catherine died in the early mornings of July 1st, 2014. Russell didn't turn himself in until the late afternoon on July 2nd, so her body had definitely went into rigor mortis by then, because he waited so late to even report it. Catherine had returned home around 5 a.m. They woke up to Russell yelling and what they thought was him spanking Catherine. Around 5:40 a.m., the neighbors reported loud bangs. The kids were then shuffled out of the living room. The lights were off, and Catherine was under the blanket. Russell took the boys to school as if nothing had happened. One of the boys had noticed that he thought was ketchup on Russell's shoulder. Russell told them not to say anything. Catherine was in good shape, but Russell had 2 murder weapons in his hands. The evidence showed that Russell couldn't stop himself when he started, so he was in a rage, y'all. Nothing had been cleaned up, so there was a lot of DNA testing done. Russell's DNA came back on a lot of items in the apartment. There was never question that someone else had killed her. He even admitted to it. It's believed that Russell knew he was going to be turning himself in. He cleaned himself up and wanted a clean image out there. He used a razor to shave his head. Wow. Color coordinated his outfit and wore a shirt that said King. It's believed he had turned himself in for the fame. In the condo, Russell had a workstation. He had several quotes written by famous people and a manifesto of what he wanted to become. He wrote that he wanted to be a billionaire in the next few years and go to business school. It is also believed that Russell was jealous of Catherine. Catherine had moved on and started dating someone new. Catherine had received a few text messages, and maybe Russell had seen them. Also, Russell was charged with first-degree murder. Before the trial, Russell was out on a $100,000 bond. He failed to appear in court in May 2015 and was arrested. He had been found mentally unfit to stand trial. As of 2023, he is in a mental institution in Texas. Russell is eventually sentenced to prison, or this is what a fan put. I really hope Russell is eventually sentenced to prison or stays in a mental hospital for the rest of his life. I also hope Catherine's sons are thriving. I hope they don't remember anything that happened in 2014. Okay, this is the commentator's final thoughts. But they're probably traumatized from what they heard or possibly saw. It's heartbreaking to know that Catherine wouldn't be able to see them grow up. She was also finally able to get out of a toxic and abusive relationship, only to be unalived in a horrible and senseless way. Don't ever ask a victim, why didn't you leave? Because this is something that a lot of women struggle with having the courage to do. So basically, Catherine had gotten involved with the man that had a lot of mental issues. Apparently, his brother unalived his wife as well. From what I heard, the parents are very oblivious. Even had the audacity to, wanting to have rights to see their grandchildren. Not having any respect for the fact that their son unalived, somebody's daughter in front of their grandchildren. And to this day, none of his parents seem to have, the O'Neills, their parents seem to have any empathy for neither of these women who they unalived for their families. Ronald O'Neill's wife family. I hate to even say that's his wife, but unfortunately she was married to him at the time. So both families are just totally, their lives is forever altered. This just goes to show that something is definitely mentally wrong with this family. There's a dysfunctional malfunction. Something's just the math ain't mathing for both of these men who are brothers to coincidentally had committed the same offense of unaliving their wives. I just find that very eerie. And, like Catherine's sister said, that was a concern for her when she found out the brother had did this. That was a red flag. She was concerned about Catherine. Like, if Russell is already verbally and physically abusive, seeing how his brother unalived his wife, I don't feel safe to say that this is not something you're not going to end up having to deal with. And we know it's very hard to talk women out of leaving an abusive relationship. It's not that easy. We could send them to a Yanla Van Zant. We could give them all the therapy and the counseling. You have a lot of women that just don't have the strength to leave a toxic, abusive man. They just don't have the strength to do it. And unfortunately, especially when there's kids involved, because no woman wants to believe the father of my children, he's going to hurt the mother of his children. A lot of women can never fathom that. And when you have a man just that angry, there's no way you can't put anything past him and think that he has no limits to how far he will go to try to sabotage you. Even if it means the children are going to suffer in the process. You have some men that are willing to dismantle and destroy anything just to prove a point. It's just a very tragic situation. And Russell, I don't know how crazy he really is, but I find it very convenient that he played the role of acting like he's crazy, but he had enough sense to unalive this woman, cover her body with a sheet, and go to the police station with his haircut and his clothes matching. But you had enough sense to do that. It's very convenient that he wants to play the mental card. That way he does not have to do time in the real prison. But what I have heard, mental institution prison is worse than prison itself, because you're dealing with people who really, really, really are crazy, really batshit crazy. And if they beat you up or stab you, they'll never really penalize a mental inmate, because that inmate has already been deemed as mental. That's why you can't pay me to work in places where there's mentally disturbed people, because if they can do something to you, the way they look at it, well, this is what you signed up for. You signed up for this profession to deal with mentally unstable people. And a lot of these mentally unstable people, they're smart enough to know that the world has already labeled them as such, so they're going to use that to their advantage. I've had a couple of inmates. I've never encountered like anything majorly bad, but I've heard some inmates say, "Oh, I could f her up. I could spit on her, throw a piss on her. They ain't gonna do nothing to me because they already consider me as mental." Okay, so you're mental, but you got enough sense to know that if you was to throw feces and piss at me, they're not gonna charge you because you can use that, your mental, as an scapegoat of not having to take accountability for your actions. Prison is really something else. This is why I really don't like labels. Well, it's important that you know who's mental, but at the same time, you know, these individuals are smart enough to know what they can get away with. You feel me? So, I believe during the process of Russell unaliving this woman, he had so much rage in him. He had a lot of rage because this woman was moving on with her life. She was moving on with her life. And she was still prospering, still progressing, still doing well. And the fact that he had absolutely nothing going for himself, that's why it's dangerous to get involved with a bottom breeder beta male. That's why I said it's about Keke Palmer baby daddy. These men who just want to stay home and keep kids. That's what Russell 𝐚'𝐬 wanted to do. He just wanted to stay home and keep kids, and Catherine was so in love with him, she didn't have a problem with doing that. You got some women, they will let a man get a pass as long as he takes care of his kids, as long as he's keeping his kids. He don't have to work, he don't have to do nothing. Some women just love for a man to be so involved with his kids, he ain't got to do shit else. Like I said on the last video, I got a problem with that. I got a problem with a man who uses his abilities of being a full-time dad so he ain't got to have a full-time job. I ain't with the shits on that. This is just me. I'm not on my spiritual journey today, ladies. Just letting you know, FYI. But I have a problem with that, because what ends up happening when you start progressing and you start elevating, their hate for you intensifies. You know, they'll sit up there and lay on your sofa, keeping y'all kids all day, eat all the snacks in and out the refrigerator. Same thing with Keke Palmer. I never, listen, this got nothing to do with it, but Keke Palmer daddy, Keke Palmer baby daddy, I was not feeling light-skinned, okay? I was not feeling light-skinned because he was holding on to that baby like that was the only thing he had going. He was so happy he had a child from Keke Palmer, and Keke Palmer was basking in the ambience, switching and twitching, so happy that her baby daddy right behind her, holding their beautiful baby boy. And she was consuming and sucking that up, and so was he. He capitalized off of that. Don't let these men love for the kids, you know, don't let them capitalize off of that to the point where they can be sorry as hell with you, be disrespectful towards you, be abusive towards you. You got some women so happy that they baby daddy around and help them with the kids. I'm like, okay, but he's unemployed, he's abusive, you know. Every time you make moves, he got something negative to say. You don't want a bottom breeder beta male. Real men want a purpose in life. Real men don't want to be bunked up under women up under his woman all the time, eating off of her, benefiting off of her, none of that. That's why I understand why Todd is trying to get from up under Candy. This man don't care how much money, millions Candy got. He wants to be his own man. He wants to do his own thing. I can respect that. Ain't no real man want to be bunked up under no woman. If you have a better bottom, if you have a bottom breeder better male up under you all the time, he's gonna start hating on you. He needs to have something for himself going. That way he's not constantly keeping up with you and what you're doing and how you're elevating in the game. He needs to have something else going for him. That's the problem with Martell. And you know I'm going to do some content coming up on them very soon. So be on the lookout for that. But anyway, sticking with my Unhinged series because I'm branching off and doing other things. This man, the reason he was repeatedly stabbing that woman was all of the hate he had built in for himself. He took it out on her. He repeatedly unalived this woman in such a rage because he was really stabbing himself. He was angry with himself. But it was unfortunate that she had to be the receiver. He was mad that life had given up on him. He was mad that fame had given up on him. He was so angry that even a woman who loved him for the no-hit wonder that he was, because he wasn't even a leader of the group, Nobody really knew who the hell he was if he would have been by himself, because that's just how much he really did not stand out in that group. Russell been an angry young man, an angry man for a long time. He was angry probably as a little boy, and his anger got even worse when he got in the group because he wasn't able to lead, and the fact that even with his woman in a marriage, he couldn't lead in that too. This ninja couldn't lead in the group high five, and he couldn't lead as a husband. He couldn't lead as a man. And whenever you have a man that lacks low self-esteem, a man that has nothing going for himself, like I said, the bottom breeder beta male is a liability. He will unalive you, or he will try to sabotage you or ruin you. So you got to be mindful. Pay attention to the red flags. He's up here low-key throwing shade when you're doing something great. He looks for any opportunity to get in your face, to yell at you or scream at you about something, but then he'll know how to double down, act like he's such a wonderful father, have you going up and down this damn emotional roller coaster. Like, I know I don't need to be with him, but he's great to our child. He's a great father. He's going to always, you know, keep jerking you around and taking you through all that. It's not worth the energy. And just pray that God give you the grace to even live through it and tell the story. Because some of these guys, they got so much hate and animosity within them own selves that somebody else's well-being is going to be at stake. And if it takes your well-being being at stake in order for them to feel a sense of purpose, they will do that. Russell O'Neal unalived this woman because he felt dead inside. Understand where I'm coming from, women. When a man feels dead inside, he does not care who he has to destroy outside of himself to feel whole again. And the sad part is, I've seen men, and I remember I used to work in a jail. I've seen men who were incarcerated for unaliving women, and I really cannot really express this any deeper than I don't know if the words I'm saying y'all can really you know, register where I'm coming from. But I see a sick level of peace when these men know they have unalived a woman. I see a sick sense of relief, like they have accomplished something, like they feel like they have a purpose now in life, that they had sabotaged a woman and made her non-existent on this earth. It was very culture shocking to me to see these inmates walk around like it's a regular day at the gym, like they're just getting a latte from Starbucks, and not have no remorse, empathy, or compassion for the fact that they destroyed a woman's life who had children, who was a mother. Listen, a matter of fact, I'm going to do some Unhinged series personally on inmates that I know who have done this. So I'm going to do some Unhinged on inmates that I formerly knew during my duration as a correctional officer, because I definitely think that those stories would be very important for women to be aware of. Not just men who are celebrities, who are stars, or men who are with celebrities and stars. I want women to be aware of that. Just the average women go through this, you know, on a regular basis. So you don't have to be a celebrity or a star, you know, to encounter, you know, these type of situations. But we'll talk more about that another time. But anyway, my heart definitely goes out to Catherine Martinez family. They lost a beautiful soul, a woman who wanted nothing but to just love a man, have a family, have a husband, have a happy, healthy life. I think that's something that all women want. We just want to be loved right. We just want to be loved, appreciated. We want to be valued. We want our kids to be good. A lot of us are not as complicated as women, as men try to make us out to be. We just want to be happy. We want to be good. We want to feel loved. We want to be protected. And it's unfortunate that he failed her on both of those things. So anyway, y'all, leave y'all comment below. Let me know what y'all think about the situation with Russell O'Neal. Big ups to all of the members from High Five who are no longer with us. May y'all rest in peace. Rest in peace to Catherine Martinez. And y'all be blessed. Ladies, hit that like button before y'all leave, please. Hit that like button. I know these are not the most popular videos because I'm not going in on Martell and all of them, but I got a side chick sermon coming up, all right? So be on the lookout for my next side chick sermon, y'all. It's coming soon. Hit the like button. Remember, members, even though I haven't been uploading a lot of exclusive videos for y'all, remember, if y'all ever want any products from me, you get a nice discount. And if you want to get the cable, you get a nice discount. Take advantage. So to all of my members, if you want to get cable, everybody else is paying $25. If you want to get cable from Mocha, but it's only today, okay? It'll be $15 a month, okay? $15 a month for my Mocha Million members. For those of you who subscribe to me, I got a special today, $20 a month if you sign up for my cable. My Fire Stick is normally $65. For my members, I will give you a Fire Stick for $55, which means I'm taking off $10. For my subscribers, I will knock it down to $60. So I'm taking off the $5, okay? Today, get over 12,000 worth of channels. Every month, only today. As I stated before, members pay $15 a month for my cable as long as you remain a member, and the subscribers, it'll be $20 a month today. After that, it's going back to its regular $25. For my members, it'll go back to $20. So take advantage today, one day only. Inbox me, hit me up, let me know what you want to do. Grab it while it's hot, because it's going back to my regular price. I do have a video in my archive. Matter of fact, I'll put the link back on there so y'all will see what the Amazon Fire Stick has. All of the cables, all of the channels. I know y'all paying way more for y'all cable. I bet y'all cable over $100. Why y'all giving these cable providers all of y'all money when I could save y'all money? Get y'all, I got the stars, I got the HBOs, I got all of the Sunday NFL free, everything. Stop giving cable providers your money. Inbox me, hit me up. Anything you want to know about my cable. I'm trying to save y'all some money. Y'all paying these cable providers too much money. They robbing y'all. Inbox me. I got you a good deal, okay? So anyway, y'all be blessed. Take care. Again, rest in peace to everybody who has been affected by these losses in reference to this passing of Mrs. Martinez. Y'all take care.